I am going to start with Barb's bio. So today, Barbara O'Neill is a CFP, AFC, and is the owner and CEO of Money Talk, financial planning seminars and publications where she writes, speaks, and reviews content about personal finance. A distinguished professor emeritus at Rutgers University after 41 years of service as a Rutgers cooperative extension educator and personal finance specialist. She's written over 160 articles for academic publication and received over 35 national awards and over 1.2 million in grants to support her financial education programs and research. Dr. O'Neill is a past president of the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education, a recipient of the AFCPE Distinguished Fellow Award, and a Next Gen Personal Finance Fellow. She tweets personal finance information at Money Talk One, writes weekly posts for her Money Talk blog, and is the author of Flipping a Switch, a book about 35 later life transitions, published in 2020. Well, Barb, I am going to let you take it away.
Okay, well, I'm very glad to be here today and welcome everybody who's attending this session. And I thought I'd start out by just asking what types of social media that you use. So as I ask the questions, just be kind of thinking about what do I use, and if you want to share in the chat, have you been a tweeter? Are you active on Twitter? Do you have a blog? Do you use Facebook? Are you LinkedIn? Are you using other types of social media? Do we have anybody using Instagram, TikTok perhaps? Just share, if you would, what types of social media, or if you want to give me a number of how many different types of social media that you're using, that would be very useful. So I'm seeing here some Facebook and some Instagram.
I see Pinterest too.
Pinterest, okay. I don't have the Pathable one up in front of me, so you'll have to.
Yeah, I have that one. I have that one up.
Good.
There's lots of answers there. So.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, I started teaching about social media around 2010 when I worked for Rutgers Cooperative Extension. And it was primarily for farm families to teach them how to use social media to market their products, their farm products, and some of them were involved in agritourism and wanted to market that as well. And back in 2010, I used to say, if Facebook were a country, it would be the third largest in the world, meaning that China and India had more population at that time than Facebook had participants. Well, that's all wrong now, because if Facebook were a country, it would be the largest in the world. So the latest statistics that I saw is 2.5 billion active monthly Facebook users. So that's way more than the residents of China and the residents of India. And of course, the US has a population of about 330 million. So social media is where people are connecting these days. And anyone who's involved in financial education needs to be active in social media. The world's second most popular search engine is YouTube, which of course is owned by the #1 search engine, Google. And we're going to be spending time talking about Twitter today. Twitter doesn't have the numbers that Google and Facebook has, but what Twitter has is the visibility. And I think we see that a lot. We've certainly seen it in politics. We see it quite a bit when a person of notoriety dies and people will tweet their condolences to the surviving family members. We certainly have seen it with conference summaries like AFCPE 2020 and people sharing some of the highlights of what they've learned. So Twitter is a lot more valuable because it's visible, it's searchable, and it's public. And that's why many people are using it professionally in their work. Okay, just a little street cred. I've been using Twitter since 2009. Twitter started in 2006, so I wasn't one of the earliest adopters, but I was an early adopter. And I used to use it in my work at Rutgers University. I now use it in my work as a full-time financial education entrepreneur. I probably use Twitter for business 95% plus of the time. Occasionally, I will do something that's a little bit outside of personal finance, maybe something that's going on at Rutgers, or the other day I tweeted that I just had a journal article accepted. I've been tweeting occasionally about my book, but most of the time it's to share personal finance content. And I am in the top 1.5% of Twitter users worldwide. Now, it doesn't take too much to get there because most people who are on Twitter don't actively engage in Twitter. So you can see that, users with up to 5 followers, that's decreased, but it's still 32% of Twitter users have up to 5 followers, and users with more than 100 has gone up, doubled to 16%, but only 2.12% of Twitter users have more than 1,000 followers. So anybody who's gotten to 1,000 followers, you really need to pat yourself on the back because not too many people actually get to that. So it's always interesting to check the updated statistics on Twitter. So like I said, my tweeting is business use only. And I've been using Twitter, like I said, since 2009. But of course, up until last year, I was tweeting on behalf of Rutgers Cooperative Extension. Now I tweet on behalf of my company, which is called Money Talk. So everything that I've done for the last 10 years was in anticipation of taking Money Talk full time when I left Rutgers. It was pretty much an underground business for 28 years because of the conflict of interest rules at Rutgers. So when I was able to really launch it full time this year, I was actively changing all of my social media, including Twitter. So it's primarily used for business. So some of the benefits that I find from Twitter for me personally is it's free, number one. So it's a great way to build your brand and to promote your business. I've gone to all the sessions at AFCPE so far on building your brand, and everybody has just emphasized the importance of using social media. It's a source of daily news. Obviously, when I'm working during the day, I'm not watching television news, but I have my Twitter. I have 3 monitors going all the time when I'm working, and one of them is the Twitter stream. So I always can see what's happening, even if I'm not watching a television program. I use Twitter to get a lot of research-based information. I'm following places like the Center for Retirement Research, finding out about all the new studies that they're conducting. Obviously, to stay connected with colleagues and friends. It's been a big adjustment being a solo entrepreneur, working at home every day. When I worked at Rutgers, I telecommuted, but I was also in an office some days of the week. But of course, many of us have been feeling that with COVID anyway, that we're working at home all the time, and social media can keep you connected. And you also get to view a variety of opinions. And I guess there's no better example of that than watching the Twitter stream when one of the presidential debates was going on. So lots of different opinions. And of course, it's great for conference summaries, like I mentioned previously. So lots of benefits for Twitter. I think that before you go full hog into Twitter, you need to ask yourself, why do you want to use Twitter? And I noticed that that was kind of a theme in all of the branding sessions that I went to so far. Everybody was saying that you really need to define your brand and your niche before you can actually go ahead and promote it. So if you're going to be going into Twitter more than you perhaps have been, or maybe starting for the first time, figure out what you want to do with Twitter. Are you going to use it to promote your brand and your business? Are you going to use it to stay connected with people? Maybe as a source of news, as I mentioned before, it's a good way to kind of pick up what's happening. I follow a lot of the local news in my new community here in Florida, and I don't have a newspaper, so it keeps me up on things happening locally. So you learn new things, you can follow people whose work you respect. Hopefully many of us have been following Carl Richards, or you will after yesterday, after his great presentation. Certainly sharing opinions, and maybe you can think of some other reasons as well. And if so, put them in the chat, other reasons why you might want to use Twitter. Before you use Twitter, I think it's absolutely essential that you have a game plan. So you need to decide, do you want to use it professional use only, personal use only? Do you want to have a combination? And if you want a combination, do you want to have one account that's personal and one account that's professional? You probably will have to have two different email addresses, but many of us have several email addresses, so that's not usually a problem. And then also you want to be very clear in your own mind, what is your off limits content? And, you know, for many people, it's going to be politics. You can think of some other things too, but just decide what is your wheelhouse. You know, what do you want to tweet about and what are you just gonna, you know, kind of put to the side. And having that game plan will really help you to determine what you want to tweet about, what you don't want to tweet about, and to kind of stay in your lane, if you will, because using Twitter, you want to get known for that niche that all the branding experts were talking about. And if you're tweeting about everything, you're going to be known for nothing. So it's really important to kind of decide what you want to use Twitter for, and then decide how you're going to use it. And then I would go one step further and create a mission statement. You know, be very crystal clear about what you're going to be using Twitter for. So here's my mission statement. I want to use Twitter to provide useful research-based personal finance information and occasional non-controversial personal anecdotes. Example, 2015. I'm at the finish line of the Belmont watching American Pharoah win the Triple Crown. You better believe there were some tweets that came out of that. That was history in the making. But normally I'm sticking to the personal finance lane. And whenever I go outside my lane, I always put $3 signs, money, tweet, break, colon. And that's to tell my followers that this is a break from my usual personal finance stuff. That's kind of the convention that I've adopted. So I want to do personal finance information, occasional non-controversial things, and to an increasing number of followers. So I adopted that as my mission statement in 2009 and have pretty much stayed with it. Okay, so for anybody who hasn't used Twitter, you simply go to twitter.com, you determine your new username and your password. I would say let your mission statement drive your username. And you could be humorous, you could be serious. Some people use their business names. Some people will refer to a hobby or a passion, their name, their nickname. There's a number of things, business name. Just on the screenshot there, you can see that MFLN Personal Finance, one of my projects that I work on, they use their logo, and then Quicken Loans below them also use their logo. So you have a choice. You know, you can decide what you want your name to be, but then you choose your graphic image. And again, some people will use personal photos, logos, graphic images. I don't know if you noticed on the first slide there was a picture of me with the money mask. I have vowed to use that logo until the day that I'm vaccinated to make a statement. Well, it makes two statements. It shows that I'm a financial educator because it's a money mask, and then it also makes a statement about the importance of masks. So some Twitter profile tips. In your profile, you want to use your real name. I mean, I'm Money Talk, but when you go into my profile, I'm Barbara O'Neill. So you have to kind of show who you are. Make sure that your photos are high quality. The photo that you use for yourself and the header image and they recommend 1500 pixels, 1500 by 1500. You'll want to include your credentials. Let's face it, we worked hard to get AFCs and CFPs. We want to include those. You want to tell your prospective followers who you are and what you do. You have 160 characters to do that. And then certainly if you want to link to other things that you have online, your blog and your website, and then keep everything updated as needed, like when you change jobs. So this is just an example of my Twitter profile. I screenshotted it here. And so I'm stating that I'm owner, CEO of Money Talk. I write, speak, and review content about personal finance. And then I also mentioned my previous work at Rutgers University. So you have 280 characters to say something every time you tweet. And of course, the circle that you see there fills in blue as the number of characters that you tweet increases. And then when you go over the limit, it turns gold. And when you really go over the limit, it turns red. So then you know you either got to cut something or smoosh some words together or whatever to get below the limit. Although I was reading the research, and most people don't come anywhere near the 280 character limit these days, because most people are using graphics and links and video images and everything to kind of extend what their message is. So it's usually not a problem for people. You want to try to engage with your followers. So try to avoid pure broadcasting, like look at me, I'm great kind of stuff. It should really be about building community. All social media should be about building community and connecting with people and engaging with them. So things like asking questions. Some people do polling in their tweets. There's a polling feature built into Twitter that you can do that. Showing interest in other people, incorporating seasonal events or current events. Certainly there's been a lot of tweets about COVID, and now we're getting close to the holidays, so there'll be a lot of things that way. Providing useful information and links to other people, retweeting information from others. But again, if you're going to retweet something, you should always read through everything that you want to retweet before you retweet it to make sure that it's something that you totally agree with and would feel comfortable sharing with your followers, because your reputation is on the line as well. A couple of things that aren't on the slide: you might want to thank people, publicly thank them for sharing something, tagging people, possibly agreeing with people, amplifying their message, that sort of thing. If you're going to be using Twitter, you got to have some really good visuals. Research has shown, and I have an article from the Journal of Extension you can access that if you want to learn more. Research has shown that you will engage your Twitter engagement is about 3 times what it would be if you just have text alone. So however you decide to do it. Canva is a platform many people use for graphics. I kind of go a little bit low tech sometimes with Paint, just Microsoft Paint. What I've been using a lot for my graphics lately, though, is actually PowerPoint, and just create the slides in PowerPoint, the graphics. And PowerPoint does a great job now of suggesting different templates for you and different design features. And then you just take the whole PowerPoint and save it as a JPEG image, and you've got, a whole bunch of slides that you've converted. I mean, that's pretty much what I've done for the conference slides here, is I've converted them to JPEGs, and then I've been tweeting them out. Some people use grayed out images like the one that's on the slide there, where you can control, I usually use about 60% of a gray out there so that you can see the words on top of the image. If you're artsy like Carl Richards, you can hand draw sketches. You could use stock images, personal photos, and of course, the cute little GIF videos that are available there. Your hashtags are important because that's your data magnet. So choose your hashtags pretty mindfully, because people are going to search for the hashtags to get the content on a topic. So you can go to hashtag explore and you can see some of the searches. You can see some of the trending hashtags. Sometimes the best way to get your message out is to include a trending hashtag, for example, if it makes sense. For example, last night I put out a new blog post. I post every week. And my blog post this week is about the relationship between COVID and a colonoscopy. So hopefully that'll intrigue you to check it out. So when I put into Hootsuite last night to schedule the tweets that promote the blog post, I put in COVID-19, because of course that was part of the article, but COVID-19 is just a trending hashtag now, of course, and it'll get a lot of visibility that way. If a hashtag is used frequently, you don't even have to think about it. It's going to pop up automatically. And very often the hashtag words are kind of smushed together. So you might see financial education, credit cards, Ash Wednesday. I mean, just some examples there. But you don't want to have every word be a hashtag either. You kind of have to kind of use them in moderation in your tweets. And then a big part of social media engagement is the notifications. So things that you're going to get messages about would be likes, retweets, if you get a new follower, if somebody mentions you, like if somebody puts at Money Talk 1, they've mentioned me, or if they send you a direct message. These are all measures of notification. So a direct message is just simply that. You're messaging somebody by using their Twitter handle, and they're sending you a message. So this is just a screenshot of some that I had. Couple other Twitter tips is if for some reason you want to measure the traffic to a particular link that's in a tweet, I would recommend using something like Bitly, so that you will shorten the URL. Many people used Bitly years ago when Twitter only had 140 characters as a limit. These days, the real reason to use Bitly is probably more for tracking than for shortening just to shorten, because people have more space. But also another thing you can do is track your cred score. Cred, K-R-E-D, is a measure of your influence on Twitter, and the highest score is 1,000. So I consider myself pretty good at 768. I'm not a rock star. I'm not a movie star. I'm just a solo entrepreneur. I think that's a pretty good cred score. But that's something you can use as a measure of your influence. And some of the things that go into your cred score and your influence on Twitter would be the number of followers that you have, the power of those followers, in other words, how many followers do they have, the engagement of followers, so all those things that I mentioned before, the likes, the retweets, the mentions, the direct messages, the number and frequency of tweets that you put out, your follower and following ratio. So if you have more people following you than you follow, and that usually comes with time. You're not going to get there when you first start out. And then, of course, the likes and retweets. So what I do is I schedule my tweets with Hootsuite. There's some other platforms out there too, TweetDeck. I like Hootsuite because, again, I use the free version. You can put into Hootsuite up to 30 tweets that you can schedule at a time. And it's a nice dashboard, too, because it shows your homepage, it shows where your mentions, it shows messages. So you basically have this dashboard that is showing different aspects of your use of Twitter. And this is what Hootsuite Publisher is like. So this just shows how I've scheduled tweets for 9 and 10. And then 12 and 1. By the way, I read somewhere once that the best times to schedule in your time zone are 9, 12, 3, and 6. But I'm a little bit of an overachiever, so I do 9, 10, 11, 12, 3, 4, and 6 and 7, just to get 8 times a day where I'm regularly scheduling. And these are just tweets to my blog posts. I'll put other tweets in occasionally for other things as well. But, and I only schedule day by day. I don't schedule months in advance, just because sometimes things that you schedule out too far in advance can sound tone deaf by the time they actually happen, particularly in tough times like now. So some final thoughts, know why you're tweeting, have a game plan, start small. I will warn you that Twitter can be addictive. You may even want to get a little timer and time your time on Twitter so that you don't overexceed. So maybe start 10 to 15 minutes a day. You could start out as a lurker and just be following other people and seeing what's out there. Tweet when you're ready to tweet, when you feel confident, when you have content ready to go. You'll build your skills, your confidence, and your network. And most importantly, what you want to do is you want to provide value to others. You want to be seen as somebody who is knowledgeable and somebody who might be a great partner to work with, particularly if you're an entrepreneur like I am. Also, remember who's watching you. People, bosses, potential bosses, employers that are out there, your clients, potential clients, your family, your friends, and then don't forget those trolls that are out there too. If you get too successful or too controversial, you may have some trolls that are sending you messages as well. So my bottom line, I heard this once at a workshop at Rutgers years ago, and I think it's really true. And it's just something, again, it's another guardrail in addition to your mission statement as you're about to hit that tweet button. Never tweet anything that you would not say to somebody face to face or write publicly, like a letter to the editor of a newspaper, something like that. Because I think sometimes people tweet things in haste, and it can really have negative consequences. I mean, any of you that followed what happened earlier this year with FinCon, it was the founder of FinCon, it was basically one insensitive message on social media that led to him stepping down. So very important to, just keep in mind, try to put some lenses on tweets too, cultural lenses, sensitivity lenses, really kind of important. So with all those warnings, I want to welcome you to the Twitterverse, sometimes known as the Twittersphere or the Twitter sphere. Basically, it's all the people out there that are using Twitter. I hope this has been helpful to help you connect and increase your impact. And I think I'll stop here and see if there's any questions that came through.
Yeah, we have three. One, the slides that you uploaded, your file is having a bad request. So if when we're done,
You can go in and re-upload that. I think that would be helpful.
Okay, and you know what I'll do too? I'll put it on my SlideShare account too. So just go to slideshare.net and I'll upload that too, and that'll be a second place. But I'll go back and reload it into Pathable too.
Good. And then the second is, of the 8 tweets a day, are some retweets or are they all new tweets?
Yeah, no, I schedule the same tweet about my blog post 8 times. And think about that. You're busy. Like sometimes while I'm busy, I'm creating content. Hours can go by. I mean, I'm looking at the Twitter stream all the time because I got the second monitor, but I'm not like really looking at it. So don't think that just because you put a tweet out once a day that a lot of people have seen it. People have busy lives. They're at conferences, they're going to doctors, they're working. So it's okay to put the same message out. I don't know that I would do it 24 times a day, although I did that once for a grant project, where every hour on the hour I was putting out the same tweet. But it's okay to send the same tweet out multiple times because not everybody is going to catch it every time. So you're not really bombarding people. You might think you would be, but you're not.
and then the last question is, should you post different content on the different social media platforms?
It's up to you. I mean, how much time you want to devote to social media, but there's nothing wrong with putting the same information out in 3 different platforms. I do that myself. I mean, I'll have a blog post. Sometimes I have blog posts that are really good. You know, how sometimes one thing that you write is you think, wow, I really killed it this week, and maybe not so much another week. I mean, it was maybe okay last week, but it's great this week, kind of thing. I'll put it out on LinkedIn. I'll put it on Facebook. I'll share it in multiple platforms. I might change the text a little bit that leads into the link to my blog post. But there's no, yeah, the more that you can be visible, but use the same branding, use the same logo, you know, make sure that everything about you is consistent. But yeah, definitely use multiple platforms for sure.
And then I know we're over time now, but are you tracking how much business is generated from your Twitter activity? And is the cost/value payoff sufficient in your opinion?
I think it's always been cost effective for me. What I will tell you that I have noticed this year is LinkedIn. I never paid much attention to LinkedIn when I worked at Rutgers because, you know, we had conflict of interest rules and I had to be really careful about marketing other income on the side. So this year, you know, January 1st, when I was officially off the Rutgers payroll, I changed all my social media profiles on everything, Facebook, LinkedIn, and then all of a sudden I started to engage with LinkedIn. I've gotten 4 jobs this year from clients that reached me through LinkedIn. And then I've had some others who made inquiries and, you know, decided they didn't want to pay for something. They were hoping I would write everything for free, a few of them. But the thing is, I intentionally engaged a lot more with LinkedIn, and I really saw the ramp up. Probably not so much with Twitter because I had always been active on Twitter for the past 10 years, so nothing really changed on that. But I definitely saw it with LinkedIn, and of course I keep getting all those messages from them now. You're being noticed. And of course they want me to upgrade to the premium LinkedIn, which I haven't done yet. But I can tell you from that experience that if you put some time and effort into it, you're probably going to get noticed, and it'll probably help, you know, build your business.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody who's still here. We are so glad you came. And Barb, thank you so much for all you put into this presentation. It's been great. There were lots of great comments there. You can read them on Pathable. And we will see you again next time. I'm going to stop the